Good morning. It's about 16 hours after the 2018 budget speech was read. We knew it was going to be harsh. The big question was how harsh, how tough, and who would bear the brunt of this harshness. On reflection, perhaps not as harsh as we thought. Obviously, we've seen some tax increases, most notably the VAT rate. And the speculation was right beforehand that the VAT rate could or should go up by 1 or 2 percentage points. It did indeed obviously go up by 1 percentage point. And at a macro level, that's not a bad thing at all. VAT, indirect taxes, and the VAT rate in particular, are regarded all over the world as being one of the fairer kinds of taxes, in as much as it does broaden the tax base. Of course, it has not been implemented, or an increase has not been implemented since 1993 for more political reasons, and that is arguably regressive. But the minister, to some extent, has tried to militate against that regressiveness by obviously reminding us that many basic foodstuffs are zero-rated, and we also saw some increases in social grants. Also helping matters was the observation and the declaration that some forms of government spending would be cut back on. Nonetheless, the deficit remains very big, and it could be even bigger if the assumptions made by the minister regarding growth and the like turn out to be incorrect. And some might argue, in fact, that the economic growth assumptions are perhaps a little bit ambitious and overly optimistic. There are still many risks to the growth performance. The other big concern is naturally, and we knew this was going to happen, we know that we now have to pay the price of 10 years of pilferage and patronage and pilfering in the form of excessive spending. And now the chickens have come home to roost, as it were. We knew the price we'll be paying for some time to come is a fairly high government debt burden, and then naturally the annual servicing of that debt. So for instance, in this year's budget, the debt servicing commitment will amount to about 12% of total tax revenue. That essentially means for every 100 rands worth of tax that you and I pay, 12 rand goes towards just servicing previous debt. That leaves only 88 rand of that 100 rand for spending on important areas such as infrastructure, education, and the like. So a mixed bag. Not surprising, in fact, if anything, slightly less austere than we might have thought. One would imagine that for now, certainly, the credit rating agencies would be fairly satisfied with the budget, and the budget itself doesn't give any reason for a further downgrading to junk bond or down into the depths of junk bond status. The markets seem to have welcomed the budget generally. The rand exchange rate's firm to some extent. Obviously, taxpayers, the slightly more affluent taxpayers, are bearing the brunt. That could have a slight dampening effect on consumer spending. And then we also note, not surprisingly, that organized labor and perhaps poorer consumers feel that the VAT rate was unjustified. But you can't please all the people all the time. The real challenge now, of course, against the background of recent political and leadership developments, is to see that this budget, which has made a firm commitment towards reducing corruption and state capture and the like, the real challenge is to see to what extent this is implemented. It's perhaps also interesting that the minister, who by all accounts should be nervous about retaining his position, was actually fairly upbeat and fairly confident. He didn't look like a man on the verge of losing his job. Just one or two final observations. The minister reminded us, as we were told a few weeks ago, that in terms of budget transparency, this country ranks best in the world along with New Zealand. Also interesting references to special tax treatment and even employment incentives in 6 identified economic zones, such as Kruger, East London, Richards Bay, and Saldanha Bay. In conclusion then, Pretty much what was expected. If anything, it surprised on the upside by not being quite as harsh as we thought. It did not raise personal income tax rates, although, of course, by not adjusting for fiscal drag, especially the upper end of the scale, we will be paying more tax. The VAT rate was raised, as many people hoped for. There was no introduction of a special wealth tax. VAT on petrol was not introduced. So, give and take, on balance, not bad in the circumstances. The real work lies ahead. I think we need to remind ourselves that in this euphoria of new leadership, that we cannot expect that one person, 1 week, and one speech can change the entire shape and nature of the South African economy and society.